International Permanent Arbitration Court has finally given a supplemental award recognizing Pakistan's stance on Indus Water Treaty and rejecting India's stance.
India surprisingly chose not to participate, and that demonstrates that India is not acting as a responsible state, unfortunately. So it is not merely a victory for Pakistan, it is also at the same time documenting India's irresponsible actions.
Will international intergovernmental institutions like FATF, like United Nations Security Council, will take notice of these violations by India?
Occasionally blocking right of transit to Nepal, the way they were behaving with China, they were handling Sri Lanka. All that was not characteristics of a responsible state framework.
What are the other forums where Pakistan can take up Indian case?
Pakistan could take this matter to UN General Assembly framework. It can take this matter to human rights framework. In case of water, it can mobilize FAO.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello and welcome to program Inside in V News English. There is an important development. On Friday, the Permanent Court of Arbitration based in Netherlands' capital, The Hague, gave a landmark judgment on Indus Water Treaty matters, complementing Pakistan's stance that India can neither unilaterally suspend the treaty nor it can limit the competence of the court on the matter. However, on the other side, India has rejected the Court of Arbitration's initial verdict. However, Pakistan has welcomed this. What will be the consequences in this situation where India does not accept the verdict of the court, which is known as supplemental award? To discuss this, we are fortunate to have with us international law expert, former caretaker federal minister for law, Ahmer Bilal Soofi Saab. Soofi Saab, very warm welcome to program Inside in V News English. So it is indeed a big legal win for Pakistan that International Permanent Arbitration Court has finally given a supplemental award recognizing Pakistan's stance on Indus Water Treaty and rejecting India's stance. However, we have seen that India is continuing to reject the decision, and even India has said in its statement that it does not recognize the court. How do you comment on this development?
Well, obviously, first of all, I must congratulate the state of Pakistan and the relevant persons who have represented Pakistan, because this is certainly a matter of great pride for all of us that after India had held in abeyance in the supplemental award, the permanent court found that the holding in abeyance has no adverse bearing on the continuation of the proceedings that they were seized of. They also, in this supplemental award, looked upon the whole scenario of not only the holding in abeyance, but considered the formal letter that was written to Pakistan and that was presented on the record. They examined its contents and they commented on that and took that as a view coming from the Indian side. They also wanted to openly invite the Indian side, and they chose not to step in. And the occasion arose because the court itself addressed this question and raised this question through a procedural order 15, number 15, in which when India had, announced it is holding in abeyance, so the court decided to examine the impact of this decision or this announcement on the proceedings that were pending for last few years before the court. So it was kind of an initiative by the court, considering the significance of the holding in abeyance declaration. And then it invited both the states, Pakistan as well as India, to assist the court and to provide their responses or their formal pleadings before the court as to what is their position on this, so that it could make up its mind whether it needs to proceed or if it needs to hold back. India surprisingly chose not to participate. And that demonstrates that India is not acting as a responsible state, unfortunately. So it is not merely a victory for Pakistan, it is also at the same time documenting India's irresponsible actions by walking out of a credible global court which has a standing for last several decades. Even before the UN Charter, this had come into existence, widely respected, widely well regarded, and they chose to stay out of it. So, as I said, they are now documenting irresponsible conduct as a state.
Indeed, as you said, that they are now documenting irresponsible, they are documenting India as an irresponsible state, which will be indeed documented. But on the other hand, India has straight away rejected this supplemental award. And even India has gone to the extent that it doesn't recognize the existence of this court. So, what will be your comments on this blatant violation of international law? So, how court is expected to look into this reaction from India? However, Pakistan is very warmly welcomed. And as you said, that Pakistan has termed its victory. But I'm seeking your comments on this blatant irresponsible behavior by India by declaring that it doesn't recognize the court.
When you invited me for this program, I was quietly reflecting in my mind about a patron of the Indian state for the last few years, especially the last 2-3 years, particularly since BJP has come to power. Shockingly, they have conducted series of acts, not only with Pakistan, but also globally, which puts across their two positions. One, they are constantly violating international norms and international law. And secondly, that they don't care about their reputation as a responsible state. And in that process, they are losing fast the credibility and the stature that they were aspiring or they had pretended they had acquired. That's nowhere to be seen. So one reason when you look at their press and the media and they are lamenting as to why they have lost standing and credibility and why Pakistan, on the other hand, is being so well received by P5 and all other regional powers. The reason is very simple. Pakistan has learned to understand the significance of complying its actions under the international law frame. So all measures that Pakistan has taken in the last 8-9 years, if you look at it, they have been responsible to undertake an FIR against an irresponsible act of its citizen, as it was against Mumbai. He was prosecuted, undertaken very properly. In cases of all other Security Council resolution compliance framework, it undertook the largest counterterrorism operations. As far as Security Council notification of 1267 about Al-Qaeda, Taliban, it is Pakistan which has been taking action on ground. When it comes to FATF, Pakistan had so much to present to the FATF evaluators. So Pakistan has been registering its gradual compliance of international legal norms far better. On the other hand, the Indians have somehow, as we say, they fell off the chair. They are constantly violating international law, all their actions. Look at only the recent few, what they have done in Canada, extraterritorial use of covert operations, which has become documented in the criminal justice framework of the Canadian government and Canadian prosecution mechanism.
And plot again in the United States, exactly.
Yes, I was coming. So each act has a price, has a value, and has implications. And that implication is that India is losing fast ground as a responsible state. So when the Canadian government, its entire infrastructure from the Prime Minister down to the prosecutor and the police examined these set of cases, tracked down these calls and figured out who has been funding these assassinations. So obviously you could notice that they were reluctant even to invite Prime Minister Modi in G7, which was holding in Canada. Similarly, with the US government, they had faced a similar situation. And then when they talk about, they've been talking about Akhand Bharat recently in the last few years, this narrative has suddenly developed a momentum. Again, it's a patent violation of the UN Charter. So they're overtly saying we intend to violate. You remember when even our non-state actors are not permitted to say that we want to have khilafat beyond that, we want to occupy territories. We don't let them. We say we are a responsible state. We'll stay within our borders. We have a right to use force, but in self-defense. And that's exactly what we have done. So they had no goodwill capital left when they attacked Pakistan in the recent time. And then even the holding in abeyance is yet another serious violation of international law. You do not hold in abeyance a treaty in which there is no withdrawal clause. So you clearly notice, and I have been following the international lawyers' work on this issue, not even a single lawyer has endorsed them. Not even a single country has formally said, well, India has a case for the holding in abeyance. Not even a single country. It's been so, and they are disappointed with this. They thought there will be a lot of support for this. But as I said, and this award, supplemental award, is yet another I would say, benchmark or a milestone in this situation. On one hand, it is demonstrating Pakistan acting as a responsible state. On the other hand, it is documenting the irresponsibility, the series of irresponsible acts that the Indian government has been undertaking.
Mrs. Soofi, since you are international law expert and you very closely monitor these all developments, the way you have described Indian role within the region and beyond the region. So, and you made it very clear that it's India which has been violating international law, not only in Indus Water Treaty, but you mentioned about its extrajudicial killings and transnational terrorism that has been committed not only in Canada, but in many other parts of the world. Their ex-naval officers were caught spying on Qatari soil for Israel for several years. So there have been series of these things. But my immediate question is, an expert like you would like to comment that when there were minor financial violations, Pakistan was put into the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force. We have seen India's violations on nuclear, on missiles, on these transnational terrorism, on money laundering, on funding terrorists in Afghanistan, for carrying out subversive and terrorist activities in Pakistan. So finally, the question is, will international intergovernmental institutions like FATF, like United Nations Security Council, will take notice of these violations by India?
I think they are already taking notice of this. They means all policymakers all over the world, whether they are legal or they are into international relations or real politics or power politics, they're monitoring all this. It's all as a huge dashboard that is before any policymaker who has to advise his prime minister, his president, or the president or the prime minister himself. They can see it for themselves. We've gone through a rough patch, of course, a few years back under FATF, and we felt pressure under GSP and so on. But I think now we are somewhat out of it because our trajectory, our record for the last several years, I think over a decade plus, has been to follow a legal framework. And if you notice, even at this moment, the position Pakistan took in the United Nations, the position Pakistan took, Pakistan was severely critical of the Israeli attack, notwithstanding the power politics of the world. Pakistan stood with legal norms. What is international law saying? And if any country, whether it's US, whether it's Israel, whether it's any other country violating international law, then we have to say it, we have to take that position because that is the correct position. Because international law is the framework on the touchstone of which every action globally is determined. Someone may not be listening to that, but the point is, so Pakistan stood on a position, as we say, principled stand. Principle is defined by the legal correctness. So therefore, you notice that Pakistan criticized even US government's attacks. It criticized severely Israeli attacks. It also took appropriate positions where it had to. So I think Pakistan's standing is increasing. And even operationally, when Pakistan had the choice to shoot down far many aircraft, it exercised restraint. Even in 2019, it had exercised restraint, having locked the targets and then unlocking them and choosing not to fire, but digitally documenting that they could have done it. So that restraint shows a lot of maturity, I would say, and that gets registered in the memory of the policymakers all over the world, and that is why you are wanted, you are appreciated, and the Indian version, and they are feeling very visibly the frustration for not being heard, for not being supported from any voice from anywhere in the world at the moment.
So, don't you think that international community, particularly the United Nations, should not consider any way India as another permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, for which India is lobbying in the UN for last several years?
No, I think that momentum is over. I mean, even if they had a chance, I would say that chance was reasonably available to them 6, 7 years ago. But as they came to power, they started making statements which were highly irresponsible. No state officials make such statements about neighboring states. It was not only against Pakistan, the way they were treating Bangladesh, they were occasionally blocking right of transit to Nepal, the way they were behaving with China, they were handling Sri Lanka. All that was not characteristics of a responsible state framework. So I think even if they had a chance some years ago, that's now completely gone. No country wants to give them any seat and to make them a sixth state of veto state. I don't see that happening, because look at the recent optics. I mean, they had to struggle to get to G8 session on the second day, barely. And just to make sure, I don't know how much lobbying they had to do. But the first impression of P5 countries, developing countries, was India is out of this race. Mm-hmm. India is not matching our standards. So you don't even match a GDP. It's not a matching only of the amount and the dollars or the money that you have. It's a matching of your responsible conduct. Do you have principled position that you take?
Mr. Soofi, from 1st July this year, Pakistan will be getting another honor for Pakistan will be, of course, acting as President of the United Nations Security Council for 1 month. There have been, as you mentioned, there have been series of issues Pakistan has been facing from India, terrorism from India, of course, this blocking of Pakistan's share of water, and then many more, this recent conflict between India and Pakistan. It was first India which carried out strikes inside Pakistan, targeting civilian areas and killing scores of citizens. So, question is, what do you think? This is a great diplomatic forum for Pakistan. What Pakistan should do vis-a-vis its issues with India? Don't you think it's the best opportunity for Pakistan to project Pakistan's narrative in counter-terrorism and regional security, or issues with India, particularly India's illegal occupation of Jammu and Kashmir, 5th August 2019 action, this Indus water treaty? Which things should be in priority for Pakistan in the UN Security Council, starting from 1st of July? Dear Soofi Saab.
Mateen sir, I think it's an enormous honor to chair the Security Council. That per se is a huge honor in the circumstances, and it is a huge reason for the Indians to be concerned about that Pakistan, although it's come in circulation, I believe, but nevertheless. Now, what can Pakistan do? Please kindly remember, as a chair, you are bound by certain rules.
Exactly.
Yeah, as a chair, you have to be objective in terms of have a sense of balance towards all members of the Security Council. Right to hearing has to be given. You cannot curtail someone. If someone, so the job of the chairman of the Security Council, of the chair, is to follow and run the sessions of the council in accordance with the rules that have been there. Which means he cannot be too one-sided to project his country's concern. So Pakistan has to walk a tightrope here, in my view. It's not an open license. Since you are a chairman, you can say whatever you wish to. But as a chairman, you are now looking after the interest in a session in a room of 15 delegates.
Exactly.
So I think that and how responsibly Pakistan plays that role will further add strength to Pakistan. Of course, the clout, as we say, clout means the informal influence that you have in the corridors, in the side talks, over coffee tables around the session is enormous. As a chairman, you have that leverage that states delegations keep coming to you, requesting for positioning of agenda item, requesting for preference in right to speak, and so on. So you have that goodwill, that leverage, which your other delegation can possibly, make use of. But as a chair, you have to be slightly more objective, sitting in the UN Security Council.
So, what do you think, other than UN Security Council, what are the other forums? As one is, of course, FATF, where Pakistan can, of course, project its stance on Indus Water Treaty and can present India's irresponsible behavior on international law, on regional situations, security, counter-terrorism, and many more. What are the other forums where Pakistan can take up Indian case?
Well, there are plenty of forums where you can, because this entire episode, one is holding in abeyance, the other is use of force, the third is the attack and its follow-up. So there are series of actions, and for each action, the forums are separate and distinguishable. Pakistan could take this matter to a UN General Assembly framework. It can take this matter to human rights framework. In case of water, it can mobilize FAO and food organizations and many other global forums that are partially, not entirely, but part of various segments they can bring in. What Pakistan can additionally do is also to consider registering an FIR on Pahalgam in Pakistan. Now, that could be a very interesting thing because, at the moment we are waiting for them to do investigation and we are asking the world, we've offered the world as well once or twice that we are prepared to present ourselves before any investigating entity. But given the impact that Pahalgam has on the strategic interest of Pakistan, including the holding in abeyance factor, I think it will serve Pakistan's interest that Pakistan chooses to investigate Pahalgam itself and register an FIR under PPC or other provisions and send notices under Section 161 of the Criminal Procedure Code, asking the relevant Indian officials to give statements as to what information do they have, which Pakistani has done it, and how it has been done, so that we can ascertain, we can fast track if there are people who happen to be irresponsible within our ranks or that we know of in our regional areas. We will certainly want to extend. But given the fact that they haven't come out with anything and they're constantly using it as a pressure, Pakistan can mobilize its MLA framework, which is a Mutual Legal Assistance Framework, and request such statements or perhaps a visit as well by an investigator from Pakistan to go and collect evidence, if any, and find out if there is evidence. And if there is no evidence, either way, document the file in a very crisp fashion so that we can put across a version of facts which has not been established by India at all so far.
Soofi sir, recently in month of May, soon after this Pakistan-India clash, we have seen another major international landmark, a treaty, a document introduced by China, which was signed in Hong Kong. That was another alternative forum for disputes and for issues resolution. How do you see that particular forum? Can Pakistan take that? Because China has already made a very powerful entry into the international arena and setting another international forum for dispute resolution. To what extent that forum could be helpful on this particular matter, not only on this Indus Water Treaty, on several other issues, because there have been several countries which have signed that particular treaty? Well,
that document needs to be studied a little further to come to a very informed conclusion if Indus water issue can be taken there. Mm-hmm. What I understand from that forum or that event in Hong Kong is that we need to ratify this, and we have apparently. But the issues that are to be brought before it will be in the nature of private international law issues. Mm-hmm. It could be public international law because this is state-to-state issue. So there is a new trend now globally to set up more forums for private international law disputes, which are essentially arbitration forums. Exactly. I'm also part of two of such forums, actually, one in the Middle East and one in Paris. But and there are several other international forums on arbitration tribunals in which matters can be brought. But as I said, since there is a mechanism already identified in the Indus Water Treaty, so first of all, that mechanism will be appropriate. But under SCO, which is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is kind of a parallel structure coming up at a
Exactly.
global level.
Intergovernmental organization, 10 members organization. Yes.
Yes, I remember going through its charter when it was developed and so on. So it has a very comprehensive
Mm.
mandate, and it kind of somewhat replicates the United Nations framework, assembly and a governing council, and then the Secretary General's office and so on. But nevertheless, it is there. And if I remember correctly, it's one of its article is about water issues between member
Mhm.
states. So this matter can be tabled in the SCO itself, that Pakistan can argue that, look, we are being aggrieved by the actions from the Indian side. They are making efforts to divert the water. I mean, not even effort. They have actually stated they want to start with a canal on River Chenab and take it to Rajasthan. So this is the intentions are given words. They are now formulated, and the formulation is telling us that the threat is now real of diversion
Mm.
or reducing the water flow. So for us, that's a very serious issue as a lower riparian. So we bring this matter to the SCO forum, and SCO forum needs to address it. Whether IWT is there or not, that thing apart. But since the water issue between the member states is within the mandate of the SCO, so therefore we feel it appropriate that SCOs should attend to this matter urgently. So that's how you could put it across. And and I think if at some point Pakistan and India were to kind of contemplate possibility of negotiation some aspects of the treaty, my suggestion would be to consider China as potentially a partner in this treaty and give some role to it, because India has made China party to Kashmir dispute already through its 5th August 2019 presidential order. The next step, and so this is the water which flows on that very territory that India is claiming title to, rightly or wrongly. So, and Indus originates from China itself, and the practice of water law is that if you look at Danube, if you look at Mekong, if you look at Nile, all states through which these rivers pass are parties to legal arrangements that regulate the water flow through these states. So I think that's one option. I mean, it's just a suggestion. There could be alternative views on that, and there are, so I don't mind. The other thing is that I think Pakistan should have instead of a 6 months notice that
Mm.
India wants to construct a pondage, Pakistan should have a 3 years notice. Why
Mm.
3 years? Because the decision, Pakistan should be in a position to challenge the nature, the need for having a pondage or a dam or a hydro project
Mhm.
upstream. At the moment, we don't have the time. Once they acquire the land, they have Section 4(5) notification of Indian Land Acquisition Act. They acquire the land some years, and then they spend another 2-3 years in identifying consultants. Then they spend another 2-3 years, commissioning the contractors. Bank guarantees are taken, payments are released, engineers are commissioned, and they raise the drawing. And when the drawings are done, then 6 months before commencing the construction, they hand it over to us. So we are left with no choice but to comment from an engineering point of view, from an XG point of view standards. So we can't question why are you making this to begin with? Well, I mean, we could actually genuinely ask that we think your decision to make 20 dams or 30 bondages over the next 13, 15 to 20 years is they're disproportionate to the need of the valley. So we suspect that you are making this so as to enhance your ability to threaten us. So please verify whether we are right or wrong. So give us 3 years notice so that we can contest the reason for starting. So I think there are plenty that can be discussed further on this account.
Lastly, I would like to seek your comments that what is the way forward to protect Pakistan's core interests, that interests you have highlighted, issues, water, Sid Creek. There are also, Sid Creek is also a serious issue. Water, you have in depth highlighted this. What is the way forward to protect Pakistan's core interest under the international law? And furthermore, do you think Pakistani legal team has capacity and competence to protect Pakistan's core interest under the international law?
Well, I think the capacity, I would want to believe they have the capacity. I think they have the capacity. But more important than that is, one shouldn't rely only one team, one lawyer, one individual, one office. It has to be a consistent practice. You have to commit resources. There are young lawyers coming out from
A
law
team
schools,
players, exactly.
both at home and abroad, and some of them are very bright mind. They're showing so much of interest. I keep on receiving so many requests for young lawyers who want to work and develop a career in public international law. But the career openings within the government are far less. So I think there has to be a concrete strategy that how you are going to provide a conveyor belt for the young lawyers who are interested in public international law and issues of Pakistan like Sir Creek, Siachen, and so on. And how can we train them, further educate them, send them for MPhils, masters, and PhD programs, and they can come back and serve Pakistan along the line. If you remember, we had set up the Research Society of International Law about
Exactly.
25, 30 years ago, and we have been training young lawyers, conducting their internship programs, and so on. So that young critical mass has moved on in careers. But still, that's an individual specific private sector initiative. What needs to be done is what India probably did. They set up the Indian Society of International Law, gave it a building next to the Supreme Court of India in 1960s. Their investment on international legal teams, indigenous legal teams, has been far more focused resource with a lot of resource commitments. We, on the other hand, whenever an issue arises, we try and put together a team. Well, that's a hurried thing. But since you've asked, I think there has to be a sustained inflow of young members from various top law schools, and the government should invite them, recruit them, train them, and make use of them.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmer Bilal Soofi, international law expert, former Federal Minister for Law, Government of Pakistan, that you exclusively participated in our talk show Inside in Beirut English and highlighted Pakistan's viewpoint, Pakistan's options available after the permanent arbitration court in Netherlands city, The Hague, gave a landmark judgment on Indus Water Treaty that supplemented, endorsed Pakistan's viewpoint on Indus Water Treaty. Thank you so much once again, dear viewers. Till our next program, goodbye and Khuda Hafiz.